Wasabi everybody, welcome back to another 10 underrated commander cards video. I'm gonna try to make these videos at a rate of at least once a month. I also do 5 underrated commander options videos, so when I do these 10 underrated commander cards ones, they won't have actual legendary creatures or commander options in general. These are just focusing on underrated cards that you can fit in as one of the 99. So the theme for this video is going to be from Commander Precon products. Now these could be reprinted in other products, but for me they have to originally come from a Precon product here for Commander. Now the first card I want to talk about here is Bloodthirsty Blade. You get a 2-mana equipment here. This was from Commander 2019. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and is goaded, so it attacks each combat a Fable and attacks a player other than you a Fable, which is a weird card to have for your creature. It wouldn't make any sense. But the ability for 1 mana, you attach Bloodthirsty Blade to target creature an opponent controls. You do that anytime you could cast a sorcery. So it's a great way to go to creature. They can't unequip it because Bloodthirsty Blade is not their equipment. That ability I think is just insane, and it's only 1 mana, so if you love the goad ability, if you want to take advantage of forcing your opponents to attack each other, if you want to be more political, this is such a great equipment. It's very easy to play. The activated ability is affordable, making it an easy inclusion for many decks. And then the next card we have here is Crown of Doom, a 3-mana artifact from Commander 2014. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets +2 power until end of turn. You can pay 2 mana, target player other than Crown of Doom's owner gains control of it. You activate this ability only during your turn, so you take turns giving it to other players, and they can't give it back to you because Crown of Doom can't be given back to its owner. So they have to take turns giving it to some other player. They keep dealing more damage to each other. To me, it's kind of like if you took Gehiji's ability, but you made it more political. And for that, I love Crown of Doom, one of the most underplayed cards in the format. And then next we have Mandate of Peace. This is a fantastic card. Going back to Commander 2019, what you have here is kind of a fog and a silence. You have a combination of those two things. You get to stop combat, and you get to prevent your opponents from playing spells until the end of turn. So for only 2 mana, I think it should see a lot more casual play than what it does. I have seen it in some competitive decks, although it's most certainly not a staple. It's one that I think can be a big problem solver in White, and White has a lot of these cool spells, where instant speed, you get to mess with whatever your opponent is trying to do in combat. And then next we have Angel of the Dire Hour. So for 7 mana here, all the way back in Commander 2014, you have a flash flying 5/4 Angel. When Angel of the Dire Hour enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, you exile all attacking creatures. This is another example of White just being brutal at instant speed during combat. And what's funny is that in Commander, people would be willing to play worse cards, even though they're technically cheaper, but you would end up giving your opponents a ton of advantage, a ton of lands. Angel of the Dire Hour punishes your opponents in the same exact way, but it just exiles them. It doesn't give them lands in return, and you get an Angel of the Dire Hour out there. So this card is criminally underplayed. It is 7 mana, but it does fit into a lot of decks, not even if they're just Angel Tribal. But if you're looking for responses in mono white, this is one of the better responses. And then we have Manifold Insights. Going back to Commander 2016, this is an easily overlooked card because Commander 2016 was just filled with so many good cards. But for 3 mana sorcery speed, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library, starting with the next opponent in turn order. So if you have 3 opponents, that's really what you're looking for here. Each opponent chooses a different non-land card from among them. You put the chosen cards in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So what's funny is that this card for 3 mana could give you a similar result to Fact or Fiction. The benefit here is that if you're not looking for a land, it makes it so much more likely that your opponents are gonna have to give you back something good. So for that, I think Manifold Insights is really underrated. I mean, for 3 cards, you look 10 deep. That's a pretty big deal. If you can go 10 deep into your deck, and you have a pretty good chance of getting 3 good cards out of those 10, it's definitely worth the mana, even if it's only sorcery speed. And then next we have Domineering Will from Commander 2014. 4 mana blue instant. Target player gains control of up to 3 target non-attacking creatures until end of turn. Untap those creatures, they block this turn if able. So this is crazy. Blue is capable of taking control of creatures, but rarely ever can you do it 3 at a time for 4 mana. It is until end of turn, but there's a lot you can do with that. You can of course use them to block other creatures in combat, But if we're thinking outside of the box here, you could take control of them and then sacrifice them. They don't gain haste, so you can't attack with them unless you have another way of giving them haste. You could of course take away some blockers if that's what you're looking for, attack your opponents when they can't block. It's a pretty cool instant, and blue doesn't have the best removal for creatures, so the next best thing is to get a little weird with it and just use other creatures to block in combat and then remove them that way. And then next we have Wake the Dead from Commander 2014 as well. This is a very similar card. You pay 2 mana and an X at instant speed. You cast it only during combat on an opponent's turn. You return X target cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then sacrifice those creatures at the beginning of the next end step. So while it does kind of restrict you on how you're able to do this, I think it's another great combat card, but this time in black. Black doesn't have a lot of combat tricks, and this doesn't have to be exclusively a combat trick. You can use this to maybe sacrifice, start off your own little combo on your opponent's turn. But I think it's fantastic that if you're able to put however much mana you want to in X and then get all those creatures back from your graveyard at once, at instant speed, that's very rare. I don't know if there's another card that quite does this. And then next we have Deadly Tempest, a 6 mana black sorcery from Commander 2015. Each player loses life equal to the number of creatures he or she controlled that were destroyed this way. So it's not going to be like a Damnation where you can prevent regeneration, but I still think it's a fantastic board wipe in mono black. It is going to be rather expensive compared to Damnation, and maybe that's the reason why you don't play it, but that added benefit of potentially killing off a player. If someone's ready to go off, if they have a lot of creatures on their board, you would use this in a similar way to how you would use a Rakdos Charm and just punish them for playing a ton of creatures, and hopefully they lose the game that way. So it's a great card. I think if you're just looking for a group slug board wipe, this is definitely a good addition to those decks. I know a lot of people are trying to get into group slug. We have a lot of cool commander options. Deadly Tempest I think is an underrated board wipe. And then next we have Magmatic Force from the original Commander set. Now these different Force creatures, I think they're pretty cool, but Magmatic Force, without a doubt, to me is the best one. You deal 3 damage, you basically get a lightning bolt at the beginning of each player's upkeep. So that's 3 damage to a player, that's 3 damage to anything, planeswalkers. Pretty flexible, pretty crazy, and in red it's definitely worth that 8 mana. A pretty underrated card because I guess a lot of people are just looking for cheaper cards, and when they see a large mana cost, they may not be excited to include that into a deck just because it makes it harder to play your deck if you can't play your spells earlier on. But I think, without a doubt, if you're looking to deal a lot of burn damage, Magmatic Force is ridiculous and it doesn't see nearly enough play. And then the last card here, I don't know if it's super underrated, but it's one that I don't really see in a lot of games, Benefactor's Draft. A 2 mana green instant from Commander 2016, you untap all creatures until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls blocks, draw a card, and then you also draw a card, so you could get even more card draw if your opponents are blocking with their creatures. And you also get to draw a card anyway, so it's guaranteed to let you draw at least 1 card. But Benefactor's Draft is a little pricey now, because it hasn't really been reprinted, because it is starting to see some competitive play. You know, it's very easy to draw cards off of this, and it also untaps your creatures, making it easy to combo with, so that's definitely something you have to look out for. But if you're playing a lot of elves, if you're playing a lot of mana dorks, Benefactor's Draft is well worth it. And even if you're just playing this for more card draw, I think it's fantastic in green, instant speed card draw. It's not really what green does. So anyway, let me know what you think about these 10 underrated Commander cards from Commander Precon sets. As always, if you haven't, subscribe, like, comment, share, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Void here signing off. See you all next time.